Mom, he won't leave me alone. Mom, he's picking on me.
If you know your party's extension, please dial it now.
Houston, we have a problem.
I'm sick of all this complaining all the time.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The show is about to begin.
Welcome back to Multitasking in Heels. We're 3 weeks into January, folks, and 2020 is in the rear view.
Woohoo!
Thank God. Whether you believe in manifesting things in your life or not, I've been told this is the time to do it. That we're in this powerful cycle that hasn't been around for 20 years. And after all the negative grief and loss and pain we have endured last year, I think it's time to dig deep, friends. Cultivate and manifest, even if it's just for that awesome pair of boots you didn't get for Christmas. Or, like my husband, his Ford F-150. He saw all those ridiculous Christmas commercials on the TV, and I'm sure that they are like the version of our Lifetime and Hallmark Christmas movies for the guys, where the wife or girlfriend goes, I got you an early Christmas present, and a cute dog comes bounding up, or it's the tech watch on the counter, and then the guy goes, I got you something too. And the truck comes bounding through the snow, or is parked in the driveway. I'm like, keep dreaming, honey. Until I can get all those perfect cashmere coats, and as Liz has said on our socials, the beach waves and perfect cleavage, and I can save the farm by making ice cream all day and not gaining a pound while having hot guys come in and out of said farm, you aren't getting that truck in the driveway with a red ribbon on it anytime soon. But you never know. For 2,500 years, the Buddha knew we create our own realities and taught the power of the mind, compassion, and happiness. So wrap that all up, and it's about manifesting the good. So go on and do it, people. So Liz, what's your pump and flat moment?
All right. So my pump moment was Lindsay and I were lucky enough to be invited as guests on another podcast, Small Town Scuttlebutt. Our friends Rick, Mike, and Kathy host this podcast all about the goings on in our small town and, really small towns everywhere. They have a really kind of funny dynamic between the three of them. And it was just, I don't know, it was just a blast to kind of sit there and banter back and forth. And they interviewed us about the podcast and our lives and things like that. But there was a lot of just kind of loose conversation and laughs and fun. And it was it was a really good time. So I encourage you guys, if you have time, after you've listened to our podcast, if you still have time, you can check out Small Town Scuttlebutt on iTunes and Spotify. My flat moment, however, was I finally relented and I let Will quit piano lessons. It's something I was, as you know, because I've talked to you about it, Linz, I was struggling with for a really long time. It was heartbreaking for me to send that text to his piano teacher because I was a music major. I've played piano since I was 9 years old. Will started piano lessons in 5th grade, and he was totally fine with it then, never gave me a hard time about practicing or going to his lessons. 6th grade became a little bit more of a battle. And then this year I couldn't get him to practice at all. He didn't want to go to his lessons. I was essentially just paying money for his teacher to take him off my hands for 30 minutes, and I dug my heels in for a really long time with the mindset that I'm the parent. I know what's best. What lesson am I teaching him? If he just complains so much, I let him quit. Like that. I was just clinging to that. Like, I felt like I was letting him win. Like if he complains and whines enough, then okay, you don't have to do it anymore. And I was just so wound up and, is that the right lesson to be teaching him? And finally, Dan, he said, like you're at a point of no return here with this. And he compared it to baseball. And he said, if Will gave us this hard of a time about going to baseball and practicing baseball, you would tell me it's time to let him quit. And he was right. And that fucking irritated me even more. But Will's piano teacher, she's so lovely and so sweet. And he really, he doesn't know what he's missing out on by quitting lessons with this woman. But she texted me back, I want to encourage you that you planted seeds in his life for future musical opportunities, and who knows what he'll do with them. He's been exposed to music, so that's a great thing. And I really hope she's right, because it was such a hard, music's always been such a huge part of my life. And as parents, it's so hard to know when to let something go with our kids. And if 20 years from now, they'll look back and say, I really wish you hadn't let me quit. But I can't worry about 20 years from now. I have to worry about today. And today we have so many battles in our house, just around everything, school, et cetera, that something had to give. And unfortunately, that was it. And I knew after I sent the text to her and she responded, I knew in my heart of hearts I had made the right choice for today. Onward and upward. What about you, Linz? How was your week?
Well, my pop moment is kind of a little evil. So as you know, I suffer from Raynaud's.
Yes.
And it is very painful. And no one knows the true suffering of a Raynaud's person.
Except for you and my husband.
Yes. So we had a big snowstorm, and my husband and my son had to go out and shovel because we don't have a snowblower. And so they go outside and they come back in, and I don't think I've ever seen my husband in so much pain in his life besides when he threw out his bath.
Oh my God.
And he doesn't complain and he never gets hurt. And so for him to come in and sit quietly on a couch for probably 45 minutes and not talk, I said, oh, now you know how I feel. And then after like 10 minutes, I felt horrible. And Braden kind of was in the same boat. And I was trying to warm up their hands because I was warm. I was like sitting by the cozy fire and doing stuff in the house. And Braden was like, I'm in so much pain.
Oh, and he's a hockey player.
Yes. And I said, this is exactly what it feels like on a regular basis for me. I said, even in the grocery store, when my hands go white, the zombie fingers that you're always making fun of me about, that is how it feels. And both of them kind of looked at me, and I think they did take pity on me for a little bit, but I did feel really bad.
Oh my God. You feel like that in like 65-degree weather though.
Yes, I do. As you know, as you've seen me bundled up
yes.
in 65-degree weather. My flat moment is, as you know, I've had a vacation week this week from work. And I've had a lot of vacation time actually that I was supposed to take from December to January. And ask me how my vacation went, Liz.
Did you do some fun things on your vacation, Linz? How did you spend your time off?
I worked.
Oh,
yeah.
That doesn't sound like a vacation.
Yeah, it was quite nice. I spent it on Zooms and some conference calls that could have been emails. And it's one of those things that it is just quite amazing. And I think it segues very nicely into our topic today.
I would agree.
So our topic today is secret parenting. And I found this article on LinkedIn and sent it to Liz immediately because it is so relevant, especially in the pandemic. But the BBC wrote this article about secret parenting, and I think The Atlantic actually wrote an article a year before, but it's gotten some traction on LinkedIn and blogs, and it's about people at work coming back from maternity leave, and the corporate ideals are driving this idea of secret parenting. Basically, when women become pregnant, they are feeling like they have to hide it at work. And it's already nerve-wracking to be pregnant. If you've listened to Liz and my podcast, you will remember from episode 3 when we discussed IVF. So let alone trying to find the appropriate time to tell your boss when you're pregnant, you already feel judged by your boss and your coworkers. You feel like they're going to ask oh, she's already phoning it in. Is she not up to par like she used to be? And as you get into 7 to 9 months, you get even more judged, as you obviously cannot hide it. Your impending family is getting judged because you're always going to doctor's appointments. So your focus is pulled. Her attention is elsewhere. Men, you are lucky. You don't have to hide that you're pregnant because you're not. You can hide it all you want, and you don't really have to share with your boss or manager or HR until, well, about 7 or 8 or even 9 months in, because that's when you can take your paternity time off. So when this came out, I had been talking to some coworkers and colleagues that had been taking time off because they just had babies. And they came back to work and felt like their male colleagues and counterparts had judged them.
Interesting.
They had felt like they were forgotten. And I know, Liz, you and I had talked about that topic quite a bit. It has come up in many conversations. And one gal that I was talking to felt like she needed to hide the fact that she had a new infant at home.
That's heartbreaking.
And she's a badass, and she works her ass off. And, you know, being a new mom, you have this weird, you have hormones, you have weird brain, you have all these
sleep deprivation.
And you're forced to be back to the level that you operated at when you left. And then some, because you're also trying to double prove yourself. So, you know, when men take their paternity leave, they get a pat on the back and given a cigar and are allowed to take it whenever they want. And women have to take their maternity leave all at the same time, forcing them to be forgotten, as I said, by their managers, their staff, projects, and clients even. Their hard work they put in before, given their dues. And sometimes it isn't missed because just like in death or absence, life goes on. And that is the saddest state of affairs. For men, they leave for 2 weeks, they come back and get right back into it. We already know there is a gender gap in pay, and this is one of the biases that leads to that. To quote the article, the evidence tells us that motherhood is one of the major sources of weakness in career trajectories. That hit me so hard when I found the article and read it, because aren't our partners in this venture with us?
Right.
Did we not make this baby together? Another quote from this article, because those sociologists have long pointed out workplaces are structured around men rather than women. And we're still have an ingrained image of the ideal worker, an employee who puts work first. But did we also not discuss in several episodes, Liz, that you and I are the ideal worker?
Yes. Always putting work first.
Embarrassingly so.
Yes.
And what causes this is because we're always competing with the men, and we have to overprove ourselves, over-promote ourselves, over-brand ourselves, even if we just had babies yesterday or years ago in our cases. And even if our counterparts had a baby yesterday, because they aren't even judged even remotely the same. So I was reading another article, like I said, from The Atlantic, and that change has to come from senior employees and the men too. So that everyone has to start being more vocal and stop hiding their kids. And it's kind of funny, the episode that will air before this, or after this, actually, I should say, in our Terminator timeline, as
Right.
you always say. Gretchen Fiscaldo had said that we have to start talking to our employers more about it. And this is exactly what the article said, that we have to be more vocal, stop hiding our kids. And it's okay for the men to speak up about this too. So if men are saying, I'm off at 5 o'clock and not giving a reason, they aren't judged.
Right.
And that's not fair. And women usually say, I have to go pick up my kids. So men need to start saying, I'm off because I have to go pick up my kids. So it makes it more
Equalizing.
normalizing and equalizing.
Yep.
And if Susan from your office is signing off early to go pick up her son or go to her son's baseball game, give her a shout out and say, great, that's awesome. And make it okay. Because we are always competing with you at work and we have to overprove ourselves. And it's just this hamster wheel that we're on all of the time.
Yep. No, very well put, Linz. And I loved that you shared that article. I thought it was so interesting. So much of it, struck home with me when I started thinking through, how I was going to prepare for this episode. I thought through kind of my personal experiences with this topic. And before I even had kids, I went on a job interview at this small research company. And in my interview, the president flat out asked me, I know this isn't a politically correct thing to ask, but do you have kids? Because this job requires a lot of hours and I don't think it would be ideal for a mother.
Wow.
Yeah. He said, I noticed you have a ring on your finger. So you're obviously married and, do you have kids? So that was my first exposure to certainly mothers, but also women maybe not being taken as seriously in the workplace. And I didn't even have kids yet. So needless to say, I did not go back for interview number 2. I am certainly, not afraid of hard work by any means, but that's a culture I want no part of. So as I was doing research for this topic today, I came across this term called the Motherhood Penalty. And it's a term that's coined by sociologists who argue that in the workplace, working mothers encounter systemic disadvantages in pay, perceived competence, and benefits relative to childless women. Specifically, women may suffer a per-child wage penalty, resulting in a pay gap between non-mothers and mothers that is larger than the gap between men and women. Mothers may also suffer worse job site evaluations, indicating that they are less committed to their jobs, less dependable, and less authoritative than non-mothers. The motherhood penalty is not limited to one simple cause, but can rather be linked to many theories and societal perceptions. However, one prominent theory that can be consistently linked to this penalty is the work effort theory. So the perception that we are going to put in less effort because we're mothers, which could not be further from the truth. You will not find someone who works harder than a working mother, I assure you. And then researchers at Cornell found that mothers are 79% less likely to be hired for a job when their resume is equally as strong as those of women who didn't have children. Their salaries are on average $11,000 lower than what non-mothers are offered, and they are held to a higher performance standard. So those stats were so eye-opening and just gross and sad. I always knew I wanted to be a working mom. I never entertained the thought of staying at home, just like you. I went back to work when Will was 12 weeks old. My boss at the time was so amazing. He, before I even went back, he let me work 1 day a week from home and leave the office at 4 every day because commuting from Boston to Medfield could be anywhere between an hour and 15 minutes and 2 hours, as you know. The head of our department, however, never really loved the idea of flexibility. It was sort of this like known but unspoken type of deal. And it was definitely an environment where, he would walk around, or our CMO would walk around at like 5:30 to see who was still at their desks. And I definitely never was. But just because you're sitting at your desk, it doesn't make you more productive worker. And I don't know if that ever hindered my career, but there was definitely an underlying philosophy there that the more face time you had, the harder you must be working. Yep. However, I was so grateful for the flexibility. I would argue that I worked harder than the people who stayed in the office until 5:30 or 6 o'clock, because I still make it a point every day to answer emails I get the same day. I don't leave any email unanswered, even if it's I don't have the answer for that right now, but I will get back to you as soon as I can, because I feel like I'm grateful to have the flexibility I have, and I am not going to take advantage of it. But it's important for me to still continue to prove that I'm 100% in the game, even if I'm in the middle of making my kids dinner or folding their laundry or whatever. I'm available anytime you need me. Don't forget about me. And as you know, when your baby first starts daycare, Linz, they get sick a lot. And although I could technically work from home, I knew it was a bad look if I was always the one staying home. Danny and I would actually fight about it a lot.
That is a big thing.
It's huge. It's huge. It's like, well, I stayed home last time. You have to stay home this time. He runs his family's business, so he felt it was a bad look if he wasn't in the office, but expected his employees to be. And again, going back to like the conversation about like, we made this baby together. We're supposed to be partners here. So my career is just as important as yours. We're both paying the bills around here, and I'm not married. This wasn't an immaculate conception. So fucking man up. Stay home with your kid. I used to actually dump poor Will on my mom so I could go to work and not like lose that FaceTime. Like I'd have 100-degree fever and I'd meet her halfway between my house and Boston and pawn him off on her just so I could get, that precious FaceTime in the office.
My mom and dad used to do that with my grandpa because same thing. They would, I'm sure that was the same conversation back in the day, because I just remember sitting on my grandpa's couch a lot of times when I was sick.
Yeah.
Because I had a lot of sick days being an asthmatic when I was little. And I just remember like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, you fight about it. No, I have a big meeting. No,
exactly.
I have a big meeting.
Whose job's more important? And they're both important, but they're not more important than your kid, So, fast forward to me getting pregnant with twins. And when my coworkers found out I was having twins, more than one of them said to me, well, it's been nice working with you. Everybody assumed that I wasn't coming back. So I worked extra hard to make sure people knew I was for sure coming back, that tripling the amount of children I had wasn't going to make me slow down my career at all. And my first day back at work after my maternity leave, I forced myself into a dress that was my pre-pregnancy size with the help of 2 pairs of Spanx and control top pantyhose, because I wanted people to perceive me the same way they did before my pregnancy. I was corporate working Liz and not mummy who just had twins and has spit up on her clothes Liz. Halfway through my first day back, I literally felt like I was suffocating. Like I was like, this outfit might kill me. I honestly can't breathe. But it was this, when I look back on it now, it was so absurd for me to walk into an office after, having twins 14 weeks prior and pretend they didn't exist, because now I wanted to be perceived the way I was before my pregnancy. And everyone was so loved. They wanted to see pictures. They wanted to talk to me. It was totally fine. It was more my issue. And you might remember several winters ago, Linz, we had an unprecedented amount of snow here, and I don't think all of it melted till like August. And so schools were closed, daycares were closed. And in the middle of that, our CMO sent out an email saying, and this was at my prior employer, saying that we shouldn't be using snow days as excuses not to come into the office.
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So.
Yes, because I had an employer who I remember made me come in, and the only people that were on the road was an ambulance.
Yeah.
And my in-laws and my husband were like, why are you going in? And I was like, do you want me to be fired? And Braden was little and daycares were closed, as you said. And our daycare always stayed open, but he was even closed.
Yep.
And I remember sliding around on the street going, this is crazy. Why?
Risking your life. Literally risking your life.
Literally risking my life, because my cheap ass employer in Boston wants me to come in to give the perception that everyone's working, even though no one was working.
Right. It's just this false,
even, like the mayor and the governor, like
shut down a state of emergency or something.
A state of emergency. It was.
Yep. Yeah. And because since having children, I've been fortunate enough to always have a flexible work schedule. I never really had, for the most part, to use vacation days or 6 days to do things like take my kids to their doctor's appointments or go to parent-teacher conferences or things like that. I would just, work from home and block that time off in my calendar. So I've been really, really lucky because, we have friends that have definitely not had that luxury and have burnt up a bunch of vacation time, trying to do those things for their kids. And it doesn't even have to just be for their kids. Maybe they're caring for an elderly parent or whatever. But, as the role of caregiver, you shouldn't have to burn through your vacation time and sick time when you are literally caring for another human being. But part of this, and this goes back to what you said earlier, Linz, that part of this stems from that archaic societal belief that women are more capable in a domestic setting and men are more capable in a corporate setting. And as evolved as we are as a society, our country really is not set up to support working parents. Most parents in the US don't have access to paid parental leave. Even the Democratic Republic of Congo, a third world country who I think still practices female circumcision, provides 14 weeks of paid maternity leave.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
And it's not just a issue unique to women. I mean, I saw working again in the investment business, which is pretty aggressive. They offered 4 weeks of fully paid paternity leave, but most men felt like they couldn't take it because it would reflect poorly on them.
Yes.
So there was that, parental leave was for women, not for men. Like I shouldn't have to take time off to spend time with my baby. I don't need to do that. I don't know. That's for women. But in Sweden, parents are given 480 days of leave per child. And 390 of these days are paid at a rate of 80% of your salary up to a certain limit. In fact, in an effort to encourage more men to take advantage of this leave, the Swedish government established financial incentives for men to take paternity leave. So if the father does not take the time off, the family loses 1 month of subsidies.
Can you imagine?
You have to take this or you're going to lose money, essentially, is what the government's saying. So as a result, Sweden has seen their divorce rates go down and the pay gap between men and women get narrower, which is interesting. I mean, granted,
So what you're saying is we should go live in Sweden.
Right. The flip side of that is their income tax rate is like 60%. So someone's paying for that. It's not all unicorns and roses, but it was just kind of interesting that, that's their governmental policy basically. And, they place more value on family and supporting family than I think the United States does. And we've all been working from home for a while now, and everyone has seen their fair share of their colleagues' children, heard their barking dogs, had to mute themselves to yell, "Be quiet" to their own children. So to a certain extent, I think this experience has really humanized everyone. And I'm hopeful that one of the silver linings of this pandemic is that we don't have to parent in so much secret anymore. My company that I currently work for has been really incredible through all of this from day one. They have said the most important thing is the safety of our employees and their families. And that has come from the top down, from our president, all the way down to my manager. But I know all of us want to make sure we don't lose 1 ounce of productivity just because we're working from home and homeschooling and doing a million other things. And I do think the downside of this is going to be avoiding the burnout, because your work and home life have all collided into one, which could unfortunately create a different set of unrealistic expectations. It's like before you're hiding your children, but now they're all out in the open and, you're still getting your work done. And so of course you can do everything, so I worry that we're again creating another issue. But,
I completely agree on that, because you're getting, so people are, I completely agree. Because when I was doing the research on this, I was like, wow, there's going to be so many remote, flexible working, balances now, and people are starting to like it better because there's less commuting and they're saving on that, and companies are liking it because they're saving on lots of money for
office space
and all that kind of stuff. However, there's no separation at all. You are constantly tethered to the computer and your phone, email, text, everything. And it is creating this burnout already, as we have seen through 2020. We have been in this state since March 13th, Friday the 13th, to now, and it will continue. And I know from your POV and our other friends' POV that it has been a burnout year, and we all work at different places.
Yeah.
So it is going to continue to be like that.
Yeah.
And the expectations are wildly unsustainable.
Yes, agreed. And I think we even said recently that, you know, even though nobody's going anywhere or doing anything, I feel like we're constantly doing something, right? Because like there's always there's always an email to return. There's always a deadline to be met. There's always laundry to be done. There's always something that needs to be cleaned. Someone always needs, it's just constant. And so, and not being able to compartmentalize those two things, you know, when I went into my office, I didn't have to look at the laundry that needed to be folded, or I didn't have to worry about the forms that still needed to fill out because I couldn't see it. So out of sight, out of mind. But now I'm, you know, working towards my work deadlines, and in the back of my mind, I'm like, there's laundry that needs to be folded. I can see it out of the corner of my eye. And it's just, I don't know. It's going to lead to a lot of burnout, I think.
Yeah. I could.
So should we end with what's in the box?
What's in the box?
All right. So my what's in the box this week actually was something my husband purchased on Amazon. It's an LED grow light.
Are you going to start growing something?
Well, when I opened the box, because I assumed it was something I had ordered, of course, I was like, is Danny turning into Walter White during this pandemic? Like, what is going on? But no, Captain Horticulture, now that outdoor plant season is over, he bought some indoor plants to spruce up his office. And he's really struggling, Linz. He apparently, the green thumb of the outdoors does not extend to having a green thumb indoors. So where his office is, it doesn't get a ton of natural sunlight. So he bought these grow lights to give his plants artificial sunlight to help them grow.
This is my favorite story ever.
And he told me, did I tell you this already? How one of my succulents was like kind of drooping?
Yeah.
Yes. And he said it was,
judgy about that.
yes. And he said the succulent was depressed.
Yes.
He's since taken that succulent away from me and put it under his grow light.
The new succulent? The
Yes.
new one you got?
Well, I don't know. I've had to replace like 3 of them, Linz.
Okay.
So he assumed custody of the depressed succulent and is trying to nurse it back to health
Is he
with the
playing
grow light.
music for it too and talking nice to it?
But you should see this thing. I'll have to text you a picture because it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's like all these multicolored lights. It's very like psychedelic. And it's, I mean, it's
Dan
hideous.
is doing something else in his office, I think.
I mean, more power to him. I mean, if he wants to get into the weed business, I'll support him. But,
Hey,
yeah.
lots of people will.
Exactly. Yeah. So he's really having a hard time not being able to manage his indoor plants quite like he can manage the outdoor landscaping.
I'm sure.
Wow. So what did you get this week?
Same. It was my husband's
nice.
buy. So this is pretty funny. As I had mentioned, we had a big storm, and I think my husband is the last holdout in the Northeast that didn't have a snowblower.
That shocks me.
I think I had all of our friends' mouths agape when I said, we just got a snowblower, and they were like, oh, is your other one broken? I'm like, no, we had no other one. He, by hand, would always go out every storm and shovel the driveway. And
with a bad back, that must have killed him.
He's a cheap person. Like I said, he drives his cars into the ground. You do that too.
Yes.
Liz, I don't know what to tell you. He wears the same clothes for years and years and years. And so he did this. And I said, he said to me like 5 months ago, I think this year I'm going to finally break down and get a snowblower. And I said, you should. You know, I don't care. I think that's a great idea. Because he also was borrowing the neighbors, which made me laugh because
oh my God.
Then obviously the neighbor needs it when there's snow. So then Brian was like, well, I'll do if I can borrow it, I'll do yours. And I was like, this is not working out
this
for you.
This is so inefficient. Just buy the stupid snowblower.
So then he buys it, and the day that it arrives, is the day after the big snowstorm.
That's the best part of the story.
Right? You can't make this stuff up.
Mhm.
So he is on the couch, as I said in the beginning of the story, freezing. And then it comes, and apparently, which I didn't know this, and he didn't know this, snowblowers come in a lot of parts.
Oh my God.
So last night, he's looking at this thing and he goes, "Hey, buddy," to our son, "you want to help me put this together?" And I guess our son just looked at it and was like, yeah, no.
It's a hard pass, Dad.
Yeah. So that's what came in the
Oh
box.
my God, that's amazing. Well, thank you, listeners, for joining us today. Hope everybody is happy and healthy in this new year. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Send us an email at multitaskingandheels@gmail.com if you have any topics you want us to discuss, and follow us on Facebook or Instagram at Multitasking and Heels. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.